Hey guys, this is Healthy Life Designing. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Darian. Today on the show, we're covering a few different things. We're talking about connections, relationships. We're even talking with our guest today who has been a divorcee and had a little bit of trouble getting back out into the dating world. And she's actually wrote 2 really great books about dating and connecting with friends again. Her name is Heather Dugan, and when we come back, she will be joining us to share all of this great information.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Hey guys, we're back. This is Healthy Life Designing. I'm your host, Darian. Our amazing, wonderful, beautiful guest, Heather Dugan, is here. She is an author, she is a speaker, and a wonderful community builder. Thank you so much, Heather, for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Darian.
I know you made a little bit of a trip, a little haul down here.
Not a problem. Nice day to drive.
Good. So how did all of this get started for you? You're an author, you're a speaker, you're building community.
Oh gosh, I am the poster child for hope and change. I'm telling you, my life was not like this many years ago. Frankly, you know, I've always been a writer in one form or another, but I got to a place where my life just wasn't much fun. It was a very difficult time, and as I began to learn, I am an oldest child. That may be part of it, where you want to just like, yes, you want to share as you make your life better. It's kind of like, why not save people a few steps? And it helped me make sense of a few things I think that were confusing to me for a while.
Okay.
But yeah, it all kind of grew out of, honestly, it grew out of a lot of pain. But gosh, it was worth it because I really like where I am now and what it's doing for other people.
And so, what is it that you're doing right now? So you're speaking. Can you tell us a little bit about your speaking?
It's been exciting. I've written a couple of books, and I was a columnist for a number of years and did a lot of articles before that.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I've read that about you, and I found, well, that's so interesting.
Oh, just, you know, I did some dating relationship stuff, and also on the business side of things, kind of, because frankly, if we are living being with integrity, who we are at work is going to be the same person that we are in our personal life. Absolutely. So all of those elements of relationship building and our interpersonal connecting abilities are going to be transferable and a lot of the same skill set. So it's just a matter of like appropriateness. But anyhow, so they're very much linked. And so I did a lot of writing in that space for a long time. And then as I had more and more things I wanted to share, so the books kind of happened.
Which is what happens to you when you're a writer.
I guess.
The ideas just probably keep coming.
Oh yeah, I talk to Alexa a lot of nights to remind me of things in the morning. It's usually better if I actually write it down, but you know, you do what you have to do.
And so what was it that led you to start writing? We have 2 of your books here, which we'll get into these more. But
okay.
What was the moment that changed for you, that you really wanted to take action?
You know, I think one of my big revelations, I mentioned that there were a lot of painful things, and I won't go into the deep and the dark, but I mean, there are plenty of things within the books that, or at least an understanding of what I have gone through, but realizing that it was writing material and that there were actual things within that that could be helpful. So I was just kind of writing because I needed to write, but then people were helped by things I was saying. That was another big thing, as I found myself repeating advice over and over. I thought I need to just write this down because it's just like,
you hear yourself saying
it's the same thing over and over. And so the books kind of wrote themselves, although that's it's a lot more work than that. You know, there's a lot of crafting, and you want to, you know, get that consistent message and to build it in a way that's actually effective in terms of implementation. But yeah, it kind of, as I was repeating things, I began to kind of form in my head. I don't consider consider myself more of a creative person than a logical person, but writing things that are more self-help oriented force that logic to kick in, because you have to kind of begin to outline your thoughts in a more specific way.
Right.
But, and yeah, the speaking, I was kind of already doing that informally, and kind of grew out of that as people wanted to learn more. I've done dating workshops. We met when I spoke at a chamber event.
That's just what I was about to say. And I learned so much from that topic. You were talking about basically getting connected again.
Yes, yes.
And how important it is to just connect with people. And it was funny because we were in a big room,
right,
beautiful space, a lot of women, and you could just tell we were all in there together, but yet it was still hard to be together.
Yes, and it's interesting. I have actually had several women from that reach out to me since the event, wanting to kind of learn more and develop a deeper understanding. But what I love about that, I think I even have on my website that the talk is kind of the prelude. Because what I'm hoping to do when I do these talks is to open up conversation. Because all of a sudden, you realize that the things that are kind of percolating inside of your head are not isolated. Other people are experiencing the same sort of thing, facing the same sorts of challenges in a different framework, perhaps.
Right.
I mean, some are new moms, some are moms that have lost their kids to college, and others have gone through a life transition. But these will strip our social context faster than we realize. And when you are kind of floating in the current, trying to, keep your head above water, all of a sudden, things are gone and you don't even know where to plant your feet. So what I hope to do when I write and when I speak is to help people find that place where they can plant their feet, begin to assess, and then begin to intentionally build forward and create the kind of space they want to live in instead of what they have somehow found themselves within.
And you mentioned earlier before we got started that you have an intention on building workshops around this idea.
Oh yes, I've done some. I've done some dating workshops, and I am doing some speaking coming up in.
So what are those like, a dating workshop?
Well, those are interesting. It's kind of a more we get more specific. I love doing the big talks and opening up dialogue between, whether it's just among women or among women and men. And again, relationship skills are transferable. So our friendship skills. They're a different type of thing in a dating relationship or romantic relationship, but the basics are the same. We want that respect for self and others, and things get off kilter when those elements aren't in place. But it really is a matter of, the kind of conversation we had after my talk that you were at. It's taking it into a smaller group and getting more intentional in terms of direction.
Yes.
Because it's a personal thing ultimately.
Yes.
You sit in a room and you're like, yes, I want to do that. And I hear from people. This is the most exciting thing. I know a therapist that had made this book available to clients, and then they wanted their own copies and they started to make changes in their life. And I've heard from other talks where people are actually beginning to make these changes. Well, sometimes it's hard to do that just out of a talk, and the workshop kind of helps you to get those specific. And I'm writing workbooks actually for both of these. This one is about halfway through and should be hopefully available in about 2 months.
And this one is the Friendship Upgrade.
Yes.
Trade clickable connections for friendships that matter. This book is amazing. I actually bought both of these the day we met because I thought, oh my gosh, there's nobody talking about the things that you're talking about, which are relevant years ago,
right,
and in present time.
Yes.
And you can apply with, like you're saying, with your family, with your friends. Can you talk a little bit more about this book?
I'd love to. That I say that's the prequel to this one because so many people start with, I'm alone, I need a date. When it's really, I'm alone, I need to get comfortable with me, then I need to develop a friendship foundation, and then I can begin to think about maybe building out a romantic relationship. Because if you don't know who you are and are not comfortable with who you are, it's very difficult to build anything strong and solid out of that place. One of the big things that that hits me with this is how many parents are kind of rudderless at times when they go through it, and the impact that has on the next generation. This book is not just for women in need right now, but it also is for these women who are training the next generation. And actually men read it too, because it's not specific to women, the things that are within that. I mean, I've spoken to all kinds of groups at this point, but I wrote it from the place of being a female that had gone through a very isolating time in my life and the impact that had on me. And then there's a lot of interviews in there, women that have gone through similar feelings out of separate situations, because it is all personal. And it will impact the same set of circumstances will impact you differently than they will me, depending on what our life histories are up to that point, what we have taken in, and what kind of view we've really formed of ourselves.
Right, because, and it's just part of self-care.
Right.
If you don't love yourself, you don't really have the ability to fully love someone else.
Because you're busy trying to shape their perception of you and fill a void. You're busy trying to get something instead of just kind of being and learning how to give. Because I think when you get to the point where you can give, that speaks to having kind of a solid self, and you aren't so dependent upon the reactions of others anymore, which is
well, and there's so many things that can go into that. Expectations of other people.
Yeah. And I think our only real true expectations that we can have are kindness and respect. And beyond that, that's not for us to put on anybody. We have expectations of ourselves that we want to keep up. But hopefully, again, those are at a good level. I mean, I talk a lot about self-talk in there towards the end, and how we abuse ourselves. I mean, men and women. We say things that you would never say to your child or any loved one. Even you just wouldn't do that, and yet we trash talk ourselves a lot. Right. So that's a beginning step right there that I think is so important. And people have a hard time with that, because for some reason none of us have a problem with too big of an ego.
Right. Well, and that's what I was going to say too. It's so much easier to do the self-negative talk.
Yes.
You're not good enough for this. That person would never date me. Like, if you get rid of those layers of things in your own mind and your own heart, you're going to be more able to open up to somebody else, because you've let go of all of those things.
Right. Yeah, I think of it a lot as it's like we let the air out of our own balloon a lot of the time, and then we go all around like in this state of anxiety.
Right.
But why would we do that to ourselves? So I don't know. When I look back at where I was and where I am now and how I feel on the inside, I mean, I guess that's where I get to. I've actually started writing about what I like about aging, which a lot of people are like, you can write about that.
Yes, I love that.
It is true. There are so many wonderful things about I think of aging as when the beauty begins to pool inside. So you kind of have absorbed a little more, and I think it makes, if you feel better about yourself, you become a more attractive person overall, period.
And all of the wisdom that you gain. Yeah. That's something that I always look forward to.
Right.
Like, I always say I love my 30s, because in my 30s I feel like I've learned more in my life than any other time. I don't have a lot to compare it to, because there's been a lot of growth with obstacles I've overcame and whatnot. But what else would you like people to know about this book? There's
a lot of hope in there. There are stories from a number of different women. There are very specific steps that we can take that come out of this. The book talks a lot about how common the issue of isolation is. I have some research in there, but it doesn't hit you over the head or anything. I'm a pretty conversational writer. I mean,
when you do love research.
I do. I like to understand why it makes sense. If it begins to look a certain way to me, I want to be sure that that's just not my perception. So I kind of like to dig in and find out. But yeah, and when you understand that why we may feel the way we do and all the elements that go into it, a lot of them beyond our control, a lot of things that we take responsibility for that really are random. I think the talk that you were at, I talked about how those lessons we learn as children about social norms and behaviors, we're learning them from random events and from peers that are as immature as we are.
And you take those on as...
Yeah, this is like social law, So I think it's really important to understand why we have a lot of the thoughts we do. A lot of times we're using tools that are just so outdated. I mean, we're using the tools of a 12-year-old. And so I try to lay out the specifics that we can do to move beyond that and assess where we are now and change it, make it for something better.
We're going to take a break right there, and we will have more when we come back with Heather Dugan.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm a recovering addict. For 10 of the last 11 years, I've been struggling with addiction, homelessness, incarceration, and just loneliness. However, since getting clean this past year, I've accomplished more than I have in those 10 years combined. After attending outpatient counseling services, inpatient counseling services, living in a sober living house, and attending 12-step meetings, I've been able to regain control of my life and begin to achieve goals I've always dreamed of. Addiction can destroy lives in many ways. Whether you need help with childcare or financial assistance, everyone deserves a new beginning. Recovery supports are just that, supports for recovery. My life mattered. Your life matters too.
This message is brought to you by the Fairfield County Adam H. Board.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
Hey guys, we're back. This is Healthy Life Designing. Heather Dugan here has been so wonderful explaining your book, both your books, and a little bit of your background. And there's something else that's really great that you've done. You've started a special group,
Yes.
Cabernet Coaches. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I always feel like I need to say it was an accident. I started it in 2013 to solve my problem and was thrilled to find, not thrilled, but was surprised to find, I guess, that so many other people shared the same feeling of wanting to find new connections. I met a woman at the gym last night who's just so many, everywhere I go, people that hit a transition and get isolated, men too, they don't know a good way to get connected again. I mean,
Yes.
it's creepy to stalk at the grocery. We just can't do that. So this group allowed a space for women to find friendships. And we're pretty big in Columbus at this point. Although now with coronavirus, I'm even trying to figure out how we segue through this time and still keep our connection to each other without endangering by becoming carriers for those of us that have
Yes.
elderly people we're in contact with. So it's a different kind of a time. But yeah, the group has been amazing for helping people find new friendships. And it's something I hope a lot of communities will do.
Well, and it is still important to stay in touch with people.
It is, it is. See, a lot of people,
We need people.
we are biologically wired for this.
Yes.
And so when we are isolated, you know, it feels like it's a personal judgment a lot of the time because it's used as a punishment sometimes. There's a feeling that there might be a deficiency. I think a lot of people are beginning to feel, well, and let me preface, up to half of us feel this way at one time or another as it is. I think most of us now will understand what
other
are
people
feeling.
felt like.
Right, and to understand that why it is such a bad feeling. But we can stay connected still within this time. It's important that that we notice one another. I think that's one positive that I have seen. Whereas normally people are busy trying not to notice other people because whether they're hurried or because they feel you know, a lack within themselves, we're very aware of other people right now.
Yes, we
so
are.
we can use that awareness in a good way if we can do the normal things we should be doing, which is greeting one another and saying hi from a safe 6 foot difference distance.
Well, you can
know.
pick up the phone.
Yeah, call.
Because we've got away from
Absolutely.
that. We're stuck in the technology stuff, which I know you talk about all the
Right.
time.
Yes.
But just picking up the phone
Absolutely.
and making a phone call.
So much better. I say we've traded facial expressions for emojis, and that's just not a fair trade.
But we do.
We do. And the video, why not, you know, FaceTime,
FaceTime.
all of that. And especially if you have like people in, I get very concerned about people in care centers. I spent a lot of time in those with my grandmothers for years. And there are a lot of people that were already feeling very isolated. You know, you visit everybody there when you're visiting your loved one. And there are people that are going to feel this lack very, very strongly.
Sure thing.
But yeah, phone calls, certainly you can still get out in public and walk on a trail and talk to people, you know, we don't want to do unsafe things, but we do need still to get ourselves out where we will see other faces.
Well, it's part of, yes, the connections, But to live a healthy, balanced life,
Yes.
we need to have healthy relationships.
We do.
And yes, that does start with yourself, making sure you're loving yourself enough.
Right.
But all of these things you're saying, it's funny because earlier Heather and I were exchanging text messages and our communication was a little mixed up. But it's funny because it goes right along with what we're saying right now. If it's so much easier just to pick up the phone and talk to somebody or do a FaceTime with somebody.
Right.
And I'm the person that if you would have said these things to me years ago, I would have just fought on the issue because with the technology side, because I fought technology, here I am doing TV now. But I love to get on the phone and to talk to people, like when you and I talked on the phone.
Right.
I love to do those things.
People, I think it can begin to feel like a convenience, the texting, that, and it certainly is. But as I say, it's a convenient communication, but it's not good. It's a convenient connection, but poor communication.
Yes.
And I think that it allows us to avoid, and it allows us to procrastinate. And we are I think we flow to the lowest point a lot of times. If it takes effort, we tend to look for the less effort path. And unfortunately, that's so detrimental to relationships. I think of, relationships falter, relationships get off kilter because of that kind of miscommunication and email even. And I'm a writer. I'm very particular with my words, but you still can't always hit tone in an email.
Exactly.
And nuance. What is clear to me, what was clear to me when I texted you wasn't clear to you.
Right, right.
And it wasn't a big thing, and we immediately figured it out.
Right.
But, you can see how that plays out. And I do think about our kids who have started out with that as their primary communication. I think it's important. This is a time where we can really focus on kind of planting our feet. If we are going to be isolated for a period of time, this is where you plant your feet and maybe begin to make some choices about how you want to live out when you're able to be more interactive again.
Make some positive changes of what you're going to do to continue bettering your relationship.
Right. And to build more foundational things right now. So the phone calls are important. You can take the time. You're noticing people more. Reach out and find out how they're doing. A lot of people, I've talked to so many who are worried about their jobs through all this, with reason. People are worried about things that they can't even express right now, the feelings. And that's another thing I would encourage people. I mentioned the workbooks, and I forget which chapter it is, but one of the things that I found really important in my own growth is to isolate those feelings that swirl, because we can see almost like a storm approaching and all these swirling clouds. Yeah, and we don't want to look at that.
No.
But it's like you need to grab each one and identify it, because they look worse when they're all swirling. And if you can't identify what they actually are, you can't begin to deal with them.
Exactly.
And we're more fearful of our capacity to deal with something than we are of the actual thing if we look at it. It's more like we're afraid we'll get overloaded and not be able to deal with it. But we can, if we separate them.
Fear of the unknown.
It is. Ambiguity is such it seems like a dangerous thing, and yet, I don't want to alarm anybody, but life is ambiguous. I mean, truly, we think we know what's coming next.
Right.
But we truly are. It's always an ambiguous thing. It's just that when we know it's ambiguous, we get a little more distressed.
Which leads us right to
this
book, Date Like a Grown-Up. And I figured it was a perfect segue for this, and especially, why you wrote this book.
Right. And it's fun. I wrote the book a few years ago now, and I've done a lot of like I said, the workshops, and I've had so many conversations with people. Once they find out you wrote a dating book, you hear everything.
Oh, I can only imagine.
It's a life-changing thing.
They just give you your writing.
Oh, yes, they do. But one thing that it's people make bad choices over and over because they want to fill a space. They're afraid of that ambiguity. And what that book does, I think, is kind of helps you begin to understand, to make some decisions ahead of time, and to find your friendships ahead of time. Because if you are simply trying to fill a space, you're going to grab the best available at any given moment. And that is honestly like looking for dinner at the gas station. You're hungry, and it's like, okay, I'll take that roasted hot dog that's been there for 3 days. It's so important to build the life you want to be in now, instead of waiting for somebody else to do that for you or with you. Because we don't know how much time we have. My parents died 20 years ago, which shocks me. I never expected that. And they didn't expect it. they thought they would have, and fortunately they did many of the things they really wanted to do, but I looked, that was pivotal for me. I'm not going to wait on anything. If you know how I hike and I do all these wonderful adventures and everything. I don't see a need to wait on the things that I'm interested in. And I don't think anybody should.
No.
Yeah.
And if there's anything else that we've not mentioned with either one of these books, I'd like to be able to talk about that for a few more minutes. We have just a few minutes left.
Okay. Oh, in terms of like where to find them, what to...
Well, just anything that we may have not hit on that you feel is like maybe the most common issue that people have when they get back into the dating world. What
into
about
dating?
Something like that.
Okay, well, I think a lot of times one of the tendencies I've seen is for people, because of that space, is what I term it as falling in love with the hypothetical person. They see somebody and they pin all their hopes and dreams on them, and it's like they look just like what they want because they want to see what they want. And then
they have the blinders on.
Yeah, and they're shocked when suddenly the person starts revealing themselves and they're doing like this bad striptease, and all of a sudden it's like, no, you're not what I thought you were. But it's not on them, it's on you for maybe not allowing them to be who they were first.
Exactly.
Instead of, so a lot of, it's that expectation thing again.
But I think that can play into regular relationships as well.
Yes.
It's what you put on in the very beginning of a relationship, because you want the person to see the very best in you. And you may not be bringing your true authentic self to the table at that time either. Right.
I say you've got to go through, if you're dating, you need to go through things like a broken toilet. You need to have the flu. You need to go through real life to see how people respond in situations. One of my big things that has been life-changing for me is to really live by, who do I want to be? In this moment, who do I want to be? Because that removes, my behavior becomes my choice totally. It is not dependent on anybody else's. So I think of each of my actions and words as being a snapshot of myself. So if somebody sees you responding to something, is that going to look like who you really are, or is that going to look like a random response to something that was beyond your control? So the more consistent you are on that, in your dating and your friendships and everything, it takes away a lot of those silly choices we think we have to make, and all you have to really do is be who you want to be.
Right. And if anybody would love to purchase one of these books, The Friendship Upgrade, once again, and Date Like a Grown-Up, where can they find all of this great information?
Okay, well, they are on Amazon. They are on my website, heatherduganauthor.com. This one is also in an audiobook form. I recorded it because I do voiceover work. And I am on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. Cabernet Coaches is on both of those places too. I'm very findable.
You are very findable. And as she mentioned, if you don't want to go out right now, and if you still would love to get an audio version, this one right here, they're both great reads. I have both of these books.
Kindle, paperback, the whole thing. And I would love if any organization, I've spoken to businesses as well, there are a lot of lessons out of this in terms of creating real connection and about building friendships. There's a lot of material in there that I love to share.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much for being here today.
Thank
you.
And
even under our circumstances, we're getting something super positive out of all of the great things that you have to offer.
Thank you.
I can't talk today. I think I should just go back to bed. But that is all that we have today, so thank you very much for watching, and we will see you soon.